Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with my full review of the Topping A90D headphone amp, also known as the Topping A90 Discrete. And this is the updated version of the original Topping A90. And this was loaned to me for review by the nice people at APOS Audio, and I want to say thank you to them for being so patient. This review is about 2 months overdue, and I want to say thank you to all my viewers that have continued to watch me lately. If you've seen any of my last several videos, you'll know that I got hit by a bad case of Bell's palsy about 2 months ago and lost 100% of the control of the muscles in the right side of my face, and I'm still a long way from recovered. I would say I'm about 50% recovered right now and still slur my words a little bit, but I'm doing better, and I appreciate all of you that have stuck with me during this time, and hopefully another month or two I'll be past this and be able to catch up on my videos. I've been behind for a while because of this. So anyway, this amp currently sells for $599 through APOS, and it is a solid state headphone amp and preamp all in one. It's fully balanced, and unlike the original A90, this one uses fully discrete components. Another change or upgrade from the original A90 is this unit uses an R2R volume control, which basically means it uses relays connected to a set of, or basically a resistor ladder, and controls the volume in that way instead of a potentiometer. It uses a resistor ladder volume control, which is more accurate and more precise, and it's usually amps that are quite a bit more expensive that use that. The Audio GD Master 9 would be an example, and the head amp GSX Mini that I reviewed had that as an upgrade, and the Wells Audio Milo that I reviewed had that as an upgrade also. This amp has two sets of analog inputs. One would be an XLR balanced input, and the other would be RCA single-ended. But this unit can be hooked up to the optional Topping EXT90, which is an expander that has three more sets or pairs of XLR inputs and one more set of RCA inputs. So when connected to this, it would give you a total of 6 analog inputs, which would be 4 balanced XLR inputs and 2 RCA. This unit has 2 sets of analog outputs, which would be preamp outputs, and those are both on the rear. One set is XLR balanced, the other set is RCA single-ended, and it has 3 headphone outputs, which would be a 4-pin XLR, these are all on the front, 4.4 millimeter balanced, and a 6.3 millimeter single-ended. It has 2 gain selections or settings, and those can be accessed with the remote control. And I did want to mention that. I didn't want to forget to tell you that this unit does come with a remote control, which is another upgrade from the original A90 amp. The power rating, according to Topping on this, is just outstanding. According to Topping, they claim that this unit will put out 580 milliwatts into 32 ohms at 0.00055% distortion, which is absolutely incredible. I've never seen a headphone amp that was rated at that low or at that kind of power, and they claim a maximum power output of 6,700 milliwatts per channel. That's 6.7 watts per channel into 32 ohm headphones at 0.1% distortion. And I did want to point out that most headphone amps, your maximum power is going to be at 1% or even higher distortion. Some I've seen, the maximum power rating is actually at like 10% distortion. And so 6.7 watts per channel at 0.1% is just incredible. I don't know. I'm sure there's a few amps out there that are putting out that much power, but there are very few of them, and I'm sure they're going to be more expensive than the $599 that this amp sells for. Anyway, Topping also claims a dynamic range of 145 decibels, which is also incredible, and the size of it is 8.5 inches wide by 6.5 inches deep by just under 2 inches tall, and it weighs in at about 3 pounds. And I will roll in a little closer here and give you a closer look at this amp. And starting at this end, you've got some RCA little, some LED lights here that show you what your input is, and also if you're on headphone amp or preamp mode, or you can be in both at the same time. Then if you move over here, you've got your XLR 4-pin headphone output, which is balanced, your 4.4 millimeter balanced headphone output, your 6.3 millimeter single-ended, and then you've got your volume and function control. And this not only spins to do your volume, but it also clicks to turn your unit on and off and switch between your different modes, your headphone amp or preamp. Then on the rear, you've got this connection here, and that is for your, if you use the expander, the EXT90, that plugs into this unit with that. And then above that, it looks like a little USB port. That's for updating your firmware on this unit. Then you've got your outputs here, your 3-pin XLR balanced outputs, your RCA balanced outputs. No, I'm sorry, I had that backwards. These are your inputs here. This is your balanced inputs and your single-ended inputs, and then your balanced outputs, which are preamp, and then so you can control the volume with the volume knob in this unit, and then your balanced outputs. And then you've got a ground loop switch here, which I've never seen before in another unit. And basically what that's for is if you have multiple units hooked up together and end up with a ground loop hum, according to Topping, you can probably eliminate it by using this switch here. I've never had to use that. You've also got your 12 volt trigger. You've got your AC input for your 120 volt AC coming into the unit. The power supply is built in. And it does come with the power cord, and then you've got your master on-off switch back here, your power switch, which you can leave that on and then turn the unit on and off from the front and leave it in the standby mode. I did want to show you the remote, and the remote is basically like pretty similar to the remotes that come with the Topping DACs, except it does have a gain control button here to switch from low to high gain. And you can do pretty much anything with this. You can switch your inputs, you can raise your volume up and down, you can mute it, you can turn it on and off, and it does have a button here for the display. And if I remember right, I think there's 3 different brightnesses and off, so you can toggle through from off on your display. And I don't know if you saw it when I held this up here. Right here, there's another set of LEDs, and they form numbers here, and that is shows you your volume of the unit. And I believe it runs through 0 through 100. Anyway, before I get into the sound of this, I want to mention that most of my reviewing with this was done with CDs using a Cambridge Audio CD transport. And then I ran it into one of two DACs. Primarily, almost all my reviewing of this unit, I used the Topping D70S, and that's the MQA version DAC. And I've actually did review the D90 ES version, or is it SE? And I compared the D70 and the D90 DACs from Topping, and the D90 is considered their flagship and the more expensive DAC. But to be honest, I preferred the D70, and I like it better. To me, the D90 just sounded a little bit too dry and a little bit too analytical, a little bit. It didn't have much musicality to it, and it uses the ESS DAC chips, and the D70, which I don't think is available anymore, it used the AKM chips, and it just has a warmer, richer sound, and it has almost the same amount of detail. The D90 DAC had extreme detail. The D70 is very, very close, but it does it with a warmer, richer sound, and I just preferred the D70, so I ended up sending the D90 back and don't have that here right now, but I do still have the D70, and that's primarily what I use to review this amp. I just really like the way that DAC sounds. I personally think it's the best DAC that I've heard under $1,000 up to this point. I also tried out the Topping E30, and I know that's a few steps down, but it is a very clean, very good sounding DAC. To me, it sounds a lot like the D90. It's just not on quite the same level, but to be honest, the D30 is probably already above the threshold of human hearing, so the improvements that the D90 has over the D30, most of them are probably going to be unaudible. But anyway, the reason I tried the E30 is the E30 has more of a neutral signature, more like the D90, and I wanted to see how this amp sounded with a neutral DAC compared to the D70, which is a little on the warm side of neutral. And headphones that I used when reviewing this, I used several Hi-Fi Man headphones, all the way from the the HE400SE at $109 up to the Hi-Fi Man Aria Stealth, which I think is currently selling for $12.99. So anyway, excuse me just a second. So anyway, getting into the sound of this amp. The things that jumped out at me right away with this amp, and they will you too, is this amp has exceptional, ultra clean and ultra detailed sound. This amp has detail and clarity on a level as high as any amp I've ever reviewed of any price, and that includes amps up over $2,000. Once again, this sells for $599. I have not heard an amp yet that I could say has more detail or a cleaner sound than this amp. Okay, I would describe the tone balance as pretty much neutral. And I did want to mention that I never had a chance to listen to or review the original A90 amp. Okay, I heard mixed reviews of that. A lot of people said it was exceptional, and that was because of the detail and clarity. Others didn't like it because they just said it was too dry and just too analytical sounding. It was, it lacked, I'm trying to think of the word and I can't do it, so I'm just going to move on. Anyway, so I never had a chance to review that, but because of the complaints of some people not liking the original A90, this one I've heard the Discrete is supposed to have a little bit warmer sound signature. So, but when listening to this with the E90 DAC, which I would describe as neutral, I would describe this amp as neutral also. So that would tell me that the original A90 might have actually been a little bit on the cold side of neutral. I'm not sure. Like I said, I never heard it. So anyway, I would say with the E30 DAC, this amp is pretty much neutral. With the Topping D70S, which is a on the warm side of neutral, I would describe this amp as just a little bit on the warm side of neutral. And the sound stage is very large. It has a very good width, very good. It has height, it has depth. No complaints at all about the sound stage. The separation of instruments, the imaging is all fantastic. It's very dynamic, it's very punchy, it has enough power for probably any headphone. It easily has enough power for any headphone that I have, and the hardest to drive headphone I have is the Hi-Fi Man HE500 or 560, which takes quite a bit of power to sound good, and this amp has plenty of power even from the single-ended output. The only complaint about this amp, and others will have that complaint, is it just lacks a little bit of warmth and richness that I've learned to like. Over the 4 years I've been doing reviews, I'm now leaning a little bit towards, I've acquired a liking for tube amps, and I've acquired a liking for R2R type DACs. And both of those are usually a little bit more on the rich side compared to Delta Sigma DACs or compared to solid state amps, and I'm kind of leaning that way. So I mean, that would be my only issue with the sound of this amp, is it does lack a little bit of warmth for what I like, but that's, you know, that's going to be subjective. That's going to depend on what you're looking for. So to give you a better idea of the sound of this, I'm going to compare it to 4 other amps or amp DAC combinations that I came up with. And, you know, at any given time I've got a certain number of amps and DACs here on review. Most of what I get in is on loan and things have to go back. So right now, what I have to compare this to, or during the couple of months that I've had it, is before this, I did a review on the FIO K9 Pro ESS version. And I was actually supposed to send that back at about the time I got this, but they both came from APOS, and I asked APOS if I could hang on to the FIO for a while and do a comparison, because I really, really liked that amp and DAC and wanted to use it as a reference to compare to this one. So they were nice enough to let me hang on to that for a while. And if anyone from APOS is listening, I will be sending back the FIO K9 and this in the very near future, probably this week. I'll have to get together with you on that. But anyway, also the Hi-Fi Man EF400, which is an amp DAC combination that uses an R2R type DAC. And then a little more expensive, but it is an amp DAC combination, the Burson Conductor 3 reference. And then my final comparison, and the only reason I'm doing this is because I feel this amp is good enough to hold its own against something like the Audio GD Master 9 stacked with the Audio GD R8 MK2, which is a really nice R2R DAC. So I realize that's, you know, that amp is like 3 times the price of this one. But like I said, this thing has outstanding detail and clarity, outstanding power. So I figured, why not? I'm going to put it up against an amp that costs 3 times as much. So getting into my comparisons, I'm going to start with the FIO. Okay, once again, I used this amp with the Topping D70S, the MQA version, with AKM chips. And I compared it to the FIO K9 Pro ESS version, and that has its own built-in DAC, so I used it that way with its own built-in DAC. And comparing the two, And I did want to mention again, I love the FIO. The sound is very similar, very close on detail, very close on clarity. The only real difference I heard is the FIO is slightly warmer. And that really surprised me because I was not expecting the FIO to be a warm sounding amp with the ESS DACs in it. I never heard the AKM version of that. But anyway, basically that's the only significant difference I heard between the two. The FIO is a little bit warmer, especially in the mid-range. Where I notice it most is in female vocals. I just hear a little more warmth to their voice, and I actually think that the FIO sounds a little bit better in that respect. I do like that extra little bit of warmth in the mid-range. As far as advantages though, the topping does have more power. The FIO, I believe, is rated at 2 watts per channel, and it does very well with all the headphones I have, but I heard the FIO does not have enough power to do a good job with things like the Hi-Fi-Man HE6 or HE6 SE, that it comes up short, where this amp does have the power for those really hard to drive headphones. The Hi-Fi-Man Sesvara is another one, or the Abyss headphones. So this amp is going to have all the power you could ever need. The FIO came up a little short, but the FIO, you get the amp and DAC for $849. By the time you spend $599 on this, that would only leave you $250 for a DAC. And I don't know if you're going to find an adequate DAC for this for $250. The one I used, the Topping D70, sold for about $650. The matching DAC that really belongs with this amp would be the D90, SE, and I believe that sells for $899. So by the time you add this 600 onto the $899, you're at what, $1,500 now? So now you're up quite a bit higher in price than the FIO, and you're up close to the price of the Burson Conductor 3 reference, and that's why I'm going to compare this to that. Jumping to the Hi-Fi-Man EF400, I compared the two, and I really like the Hi-Fi-Man EF400. It has a very nice warm sound to it. The R2R DAC is great in my opinion, but since I reviewed that, I heard that there was a problem with that that's being corrected, maybe even recall. And I never heard that problem. I never heard any issues with the EF400, but okay, I heard it's only in the non-oversampling mode. And right away, when I first got the EF400, I decided that I liked the oversampling mode better. So I only listened to it in oversampling mode. Well, now that I found out there was a problem, if I go back and switch to the non-oversampling mode on the EF400, I realize that the soundstage collapses. The soundstage loses width and depth, and it has a very narrow sound. So there's something that I do admit now that if you use a non-oversampling mode on the EF400, or at least the one I have, I think mine was an early version, that the soundstage loses quite a bit of width. So, but using the oversampling mode, and it doesn't matter if you're on a high gain or low gain, the oversampling mode sounds great. So that's what I use to compare these. And once again, the EF400 is a little warmer, a little richer than the Topping. And they both have great power, but the Topping has even more. But I did notice that the Topping does have just a little bit more detail and just a little better clarity than the Hi-Fi-Man. So, and the Hi-Fi-Man, well, the Hi-Fi-Man has its own DAC, but it only has one input, so that's a whole nother issue that I had. But they've recently come out with the EF600, which now has more inputs and is exactly what I wanted the EF400 to be in the first place. So Anyway, I'm going to jump to the burst in Conductor 3. And the Conductor 3 reference is a combination amp DAC, and it sells for, I think, $1,750. But by the time you combine this with a good DAC, you're going to be pretty close to that. Maybe not quite there, but close. So I compared the two. The Burson has outstanding power up on a level of this. So that's one place this isn't going to beat the Burson. The Burson's got tons of power. The Burson has a warmer overall sound. It all the way through the frequency range, it just sounds warmer, but I will tell you that I think the Topping actually has a little bit better detail. It etches out a little more detail out of the recording than the Burson can, but the Burson is quite a bit warmer and richer sounding, and to be honest, I think the Burson does have a more pleasant sound, but that's just me. That's because I kind of lean that way now, preferring that warmer, richer sound. If you want every last detail out of your recording, then the Topping is the way to go. The last it's an amp DAC combination that I compared this to would be the Audio GD Master 9 and R8 DAC combination, and once again, that's like a $4,000 amp DAC stack. And it's not really fair, but this compares in a lot of ways, so I'm going to compare them. Power-wise, this is up there with the Audio GD. In fact, it probably measures cleaner. It probably puts out as much power as the Audio GD, but at a lower distortion and better measurements. And I'll be the first to tell you, or I won't be the first to tell you, everyone has probably told you this measures much better than the Audio GD equipment. The Audio GD stuff does not measure well, but for some reason, I love the way it sounds. I've compared that Audio GD Master 9 to many amps, and I've compared the DAC to several DACs, and I just love the way they sound. So I'll leave it at that. Anyway, okay, so power, they're pretty much equal, but the Topping's doing it at a lower distortion level. Sound-wise, once again, the Audio GD has a warmer, richer sound. Detail-wise, I would say it's very close, but that the Topping might actually squeeze out a little bit more detail than the Master 9. And that's probably part of those measurements. You know, this measures extremely well. The Audio GD, not so much so. Excuse me again, just a second. Where the Audio GD has an advantage over the Topping stack is not only does it have a warmer, richer sound, which I really like. The Audio GD is pure Class A, and but also, and this is probably partially because of the DAC. It's an R2R DAC. The Audio GD, to me, just has a not necessarily larger sound stage, but more depth to it and more of a three-dimensional sound. And I think a lot of that difference is the R2R DAC. It's just, I love the R8 DAC, but that's a $2,000 DAC. I didn't try that DAC hooked up to this amp for two reasons. Number one, most people aren't going to use a DAC that's 3 times the price of their amp. The other one is if someone's buying the Topping A90 Discrete amp, they're probably doing it because of the virtually perfect measurements. The Audio GD R8 does not have anywhere close to perfect measurements, so I can't see someone buying that DAC to hook up to this amp, so I never even tried it. I use the Topping DAC that has equally almost perfect measurements. So, bottom line, I prefer the sound of the Audio GD stack because it's warmer, richer, and just has more of a three-dimensional sound stage. But like I said, this DAC has every bit or maybe even more detail and just outstanding clarity that the Audio GD stack struggles to keep up with. So bottom line, okay, this amp will be perfect for some people and other people maybe not so much. The people that are going to find this perfect are the people that want superb measurements, want ultra clean, ultra detailed sound for a great price of $599. Those people are going to love this amp. Okay? If you're looking for something a little warmer, a little richer, a little more lush, with a little more musicality to it, then this amp probably isn't the right amp for you. There's a lot of other choices out there. You might even want to go to a tube amp. So, highly recommend this to someone that's looking to hear every last detail. Okay, another thing to factor in, besides from your own personal taste, is what headphone you're using. Okay, this thing has enough power for any headphone. That's not the issue. What is the issue is, do you have a warm, possibly on the dark side headphone? If you do, this is going to help bring out every detail that headphone struggles to bring out. It's going to bring out more detail. If you've already got a bright sounding headphone, like say a Hi-Fi Man Sandara or something, this may push it over the edge. It might just give you too much brightness, too much detail, to the point it can become fatiguing and hard to listen to. And, some people might argue that too much detail is not a valid argument, that it's not real, that the more the better. But really detailed sound can sound great for a while, but it can wear you out. It can wear out your ears. It can wear out your brain after a while. It's kind of like if you watch a TV on the vivid setting. Okay, when you go to a store and you look at a TV on display, they're going to have it on vivid to draw your attention to it. Okay? And you're going to look at that and see another TV next to it and just say, look at this one. It's got brighter colors. It's got better contrast. I really like this TV. But when you bring it home, you're probably not going to want to watch it on the vivid setting, especially in a dark room, because you're going to realize that you can't make it through a movie without eye strain and without a headache. You usually have to turn take it off of vivid and put it on something a little easier on the eyes. It looks great for a while, but it just wears you out. It's too much. Same thing with headphones and amps and DACs and all that. Super detail can sound great for a while, but it can wear you out. It can wear you down. If you're the type of person that wants to sit back and listen to music for hours, sit in a big chair and put on your headphones, you might want something a little more laid back. A pair of headphones that are a little less dynamic. Too dynamic can wear you out too, and this amp is very dynamic. So it depends what you're looking for. If you want super detailed, if you want dynamics, you want punch, you want slam, this is the amp for you, especially at the price of $599. This is bang for the buck, no doubt about it. But if you want to sit back and relax and listen to for hours, you're either going to need to use a headphone that's a little more laid back, something like maybe a ZMF, something like that with this if you want to do long listening sections, or you might want to go to an amp that's just a little more laid back. This amp is in your face. So, like I said, I can highly recommend this amp as the most detailed, most clean, most bang for the buck amp I've heard under $1,000. I can easily make that recommendation, but you are the one that has to decide, is that what you really want? Because it might not be, but what you can do is you can have a really detailed pair of headphones. It's going to, you know, like I love the Hi-Fi Man Ananda Stealth and the Aria Stealth on this. Very, very detailed, super detailed. But you might want to have a second pair of headphones like the ZMF Atrium. It definitely tames down this amp a little bit. It tames down the detail, tames down the dynamics, and gives it a more relaxed, more mellow sound that you probably want if you're going to do a long listening session. So, but you do have that choice with this amp, you know. By switching headphones, you can have the best of both worlds. So yeah, great amp, but not for absolutely everybody. I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. Appreciate you watching my video, sticking with me. I'm hoping that I'm not slurring my words too bad. You know, the muscles in my face do get tired pretty quick doing these. And just wanted to let you know the Headphone Experience on Facebook is up to 22.2 thousand members, growing at about 20 to 25 members per day. And did want to mention that my YouTube channel here broke the 500,000 view mark last week. So really happy about that, pretty excited. And I have you, my viewers, to thank for that. So anyway, give me a thumbs up if this video helped you. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And once again, thanks for watching my video.